Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Afri Candra. I am from Class 2A English Department, Polytechnic Negeri Padang. And now in subject communication skills in topic mid semester. Uh, and now comes to my explanation about our half semester. This half semester about the communication skill. The first thing is communication is something is based in human life because without communication, human cannot make interaction with each others because we know that in communication before interaction there are several communication that we have to do so the interaction can be happen in this life. So the first thing we have to discuss about communication skill is about the concept of the communication itself. There are several concepts about communication have made by the expert. They are the first one is Carl Hovland. A well-known psychologist defined communication as the process by which as individual, the communicator, transmits stimuli, usually verbal symbols, to modify the behavior to the other individual or communicators. And the second one is G.G. Brown stated that communication is the transfer of information from one person to another, whether or not or explicit confidence, but the information transfer must be understandable to the receiver. And the third one is Chip Ross, attorney and mediator, said that we all use language to communicate, to express ourselves, to get our ideas across, and to connect with the person whom we are speaking. When a relationship is working, the act of communicating seems to flow relatively effortlessly. When a relationship is deteriorating, the act of communicating can be as frustrating as climbing a hill of sand. In conclusion, based on three that experts that have already stated what the communication is, in conclusion, I can say that communication means that giving, receiving, and exchanging ideas, information, signal, or message through some media and make sure that people easily understand what we are trying to tell them. In this communication include speaking, writing, listening, and skill to make it clear to the society. And the second thing is about the type of communication. There are two main type of communication, is a verbal communication and also non-verbal communication. But based on the purpose, there are formal communication and also informal communication. I will discuss about one each of them. For the first thing is about formal communication. There are oral communication and written communication. Oral communication means that the communication that we do directly to the others. For example, communication that we do for face-to-face person, like in the meeting, in the talk show, or something like that. So it means that we have to meet people to do this oral communication, or by the media like conference or something like that. And the second thing is about written communication. Written communication means that we have to do it by a media, that we have to write it first before we convey to the other. For example, it's about the formal communication, is about the letter that we made and we send it to the other company. So it means that writing communication, so it should be a media as a paper or something like that, to write the communication or to write the information before we convey to the others. And then about the non-verbal communication. About the non-verbal communication means that we are not using written communication and also oral communication. It means that the communication happen by showing our body language, by the symbol that we try to show them or something like that. It includes our appearance, our body language, or our gesture and symbol that we try to tell them. So it means that verbal communication not happen directly but indirectly, because they just some of people understand about non-verbal communication. It's about the culture, is because different culture have different kind of non-verbal communication. And the last one is about the based on the purpose what communication is for. The first thing is formal communication. Why is it formal? Because there are several rules that we have to follow. There are several rules that we have to do in formal communication. There are certain rules, convention, and principles are followed while communicating message, such as we have to watch out about the grammar. We have to pay more attention to the principles or something like that. We have to pay more attention to the structure or something like that. So it will more hard to do a formal communication rather than informal communication. And now it comes to the informal communication. Informal communication means that we have to talk easily with them without thinking about how do we speak, the way I speak, the way I have to watch out about the grammar. It's not means about the informal communication, because informal communication just means that we try to tell them information and they understand about what we I to what we try to convey to them. So it is just a casual talk and established for social affiliation, such as make a friend, with family, or etc. This kind of communication usually use many kind of slang word. For example, break a leg, cup of tea, because there is no standard about the informal communication. It's just a talk to talk, and not based on the certain rules or something like that. And the next is about the basic principles of communication. There is a 7CS. We call it 7CS because it is at the first character of the word is C. So it count about seven things that you have to watch out about the communication itself. The first thing about the clarity. Clarity means that we express the communication on a logical way. So it should be it should be the same way we are what we try to convey, and what our face show to the audience. Because if it's different, it means that we are try to convey the different information based on our information and our face expression. So the society cannot believe that information, because there is differences between our expression and our information. The second thing is about the completeness. Completeness means that tell information and not just several part of them. It means that we have to convey to them the full of information about what we are trying to tell them. For example, in telling about some of announcement, we have to tell them full of announcement, full of content of the announcement itself. Don't tell them just the content, or just the last part, or just the first part. We have to uh, tell them all of the part to make it clear and make it obvious. And the third one is about the conciseness. Conciseness means that clear and tell the main point of your communication. Do not spin around, because in telling communication we have to convey them at the main point, that the information that we have to tell them, such as in telling an announcement, we have to do not spin around by discussing about other information. Just convey the information that we have to convey. Do not discuss about any kind of thing, because it will waste more time, it will use more time, and this is not effective to communication itself. It means that do not spin around to the communication that you are trying to convey. And next is about the consideration. In communication, you have to consider several part of several things that make your communication becomes effective. Why? Because in considering about the several aspects, it means that you're considering about what kind of communication that you use, what kind of the audience, and what kind of yourself that trying to convey the information. So you have to adopt this several things can be as one, and make it easily to tell them about information, so that you can consider about this thing. And this several thing you can adopt it to yourself. And next is about correctness. The information should be true or fake. Do not tell the wrong information, because if the information wrong and the people believe the information, it could be a hoax, and people misunderstand about the point of the point or the fact that neglected from our speaking. So it means that we are trying to make a wrong information to the society, so it's not good because the society will misunderstand about that. The next is about courtesy. You have to be polite to convey your communication. You have to know your audience behavior. Yes, so based what kind of your audience, what behavior your audience have. It means that you have to be polite to them even if they are not good enough to receive your information. It means that you have to keep polite, because if you being polite, at least they will pay attention to you, they will adore you at that time. So it is very important to do so. And that next is about the concrete. Concrete means that you have to build the communication structure so your audience will easily get your point. It means that your communication should be structured enough to tell the audience. In other words, it means that there are several structures that communication should be. The first thing is about the opening, the content, or the closing, or something like that, or several kind of communication or several kind of information that you have to convey. You have to consider about that again. So you make it into a good structure. Do not exchange the last part to the first part, or the content to the first part, or something like that. So it will make your audience become so confused and do not understand about what you try to speak about. The next is we will discuss about the purpose of communication itself. There are several things to what communication is for. The first thing is to educate people, to provide knowledge, to influence and to persuasion, and to sales marketing or something like that. But the main point the communication should happen is to tell some information to the others. Because why? Without information we can make an interaction with the others. At least we have a little information to tell to the others, so our communication or our conversation can be started, and then we can continue that happen in the future. Okay, sorry. And then about the barriers to communication. Sometimes communication is not easy to do even we try to put our best in doing communication. These barriers can be burden to the people who do communication. Because why? This kind of barrier sometimes makes people feel uncomfortable to tell some information about them, even if they are deserve enough to tell the information. It may be because of they think that they don't good enough to do this kind of thing. And the first thing is about the physical barriers. What is physical barriers? It means that the environment aspect, because they don't have enough equipment to make the communication becomes a good thing, such as eyesight, hearing difficulties, eye health, mental comfort, and etc. It means that there are something like from their self, like they have they it's hard for them to hear something, it's hard for them to see something, or it's hard for them to stand up or something like that. It means that the communication is already can't be done because of the barriers that they have, that they maybe it have by the audience, it have by the informer, or it have by the media or something like that. In other hand, if the barrier to communication have by the media or by the equipment, it means that the the sound system is already do the wrong thing. The sound system, there are techniques problem on the sound system, or the internet is turned off, or there is something, there's problem with the connection or something like that. It means that the have a the means that the communication have a barriers. And next is about the system design. The communication can be done because of the system design is good enough to be the media of the communication itself. Because wrong system can make the communication become something worse to do or even hard to do. For example, it's about the wrong organization, wrong system, wrong order, or etc. Wrong organization means that the communication not happen from the low level of the employee to the higher level of boss or something like that, or head of the company. So it means that they are neglected the bureaucracy that should be happen in that communication itself. So it's not good because there are there are several people that lose the information, or they don't even know about the information. So when they know about the information, it will shock themselves. So it's not good, right? So about the last thing about the barriers of communication is about the semantic barriers. This problem comes from the ones who have several problems in themselves, such as attitude, mentality, understanding of something. It means that uh, this kind of problem comes from the audience, or might the informer, because they are have a bad attitude. If the informer have a bad attitude, it means that the people think that they are not good enough to convey the information, so they will not put more attention to them. So it will less people hear them, and many of people do not get information. So it's not good because our main point to convey the information is to make people understand and make people get the point that we are trying to convey. And the second thing about the mentality, how if these people is not good enough, they are not uh, brave enough to do this kind of communication. So uh, it means that in mentality they are not good enough. So it the communication maybe become worse because not strong enough to do so. And the last thing is there about their understanding or something like that, because if the audience of the informer not have a good understanding of the information itself, the information can become worse because they don't even know, they don't even understand the communication itself. That's why we have to consider several part of the communication, several aspect of the communication. It based on the 7 Cs that we discussed before about the consideration. So every barriers we can fix it based on the 7 Cs. So everything have a solution, right? So it means that you have to put more effort if you want to make your communication become better or become good enough to convey to the society, or to do is to do this kind of communication being better and better in the future. Okay, after I try to explain this half semester lesson, so this is the last. Thank you for your attention. See you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.